Newport Beach, California, a city of sun-drenched prosperity, where yachts sway in the harbor and streets are lined with towering palms. Here lived Dr. Ronald Franklin Gilbert, a man whose life seemed destined for greatness. A respected urologist and former chief of urology at Hoag Memorial Hospital, Dr. Gilbert was known for his precision, empathy, and leadership in the medical community. But medicine was only one part of his story. He had co-founded a pharmaceutical company on the verge of a breakthrough, poised to be sold for tens of millions of dollars. He was also a husband and father of two, a mentor, a former stockbroker, and even a rock musician in his youth. To those around him, Dr. Gilbert embodied discipline, passion, and purpose, a man who had worked tirelessly to balance family, career, and ambition. In his Newport Beach office, patients were greeted with warmth and reassurance. Staff admired his calm demeanor and steady hand, qualities that had saved countless lives. But beyond the polished professionalism, a silent storm from the past was brewing, a grudge that had grown cold and obsessive over more than 20 years. The seeds of tragedy were planted decades earlier, in 1992, at a Veterans Affairs hospital in Long Beach. A retired barber named Stanwood Fred Elkis sought treatment for a debilitating urological condition. Among the physicians caring for him was a young resident named Ronald Gilbert. Dr. Gilbert recommended a simple, routine procedure to address Elkis's condition. The operation, performed by other doctors, did not go as planned. Elkis suffered chronic incontinence, erectile dysfunction, and a profound decline in his quality of life. For many, these complications might be met with acceptance, but Elkis did not accept them. He became consumed with resentment, fixating on the one man he believed responsible for the ruin of his life. Over the next 2 decades, he amassed medical records, personal recordings, and obsessive documentation of his perceived mistreatment, showing it to anyone who would listen. He became a man swallowed by a singular purpose: revenge. His obsession simmered quietly, unremarked upon by those around him, until the day it erupted into lethal violence. For years, Dr. Gilbert continued his life, helping patients, building his company, and raising his family, unaware that someone from his distant past was tracking him. Elkis, now 75 years old, had planned every detail meticulously. He traveled over 50 miles from his home in Lake Elsinore to Newport Beach, using a false name to secure an appointment at Dr. Gilbert's office. Every step of the journey reflected decades of obsession and careful preparation. On the morning of January 28, 2013, the stage was set. The office was quiet, designed for healing, with the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint scent of antiseptic. Staff moved through their routines, patients sat in the waiting room, and Dr. Gilbert prepared for another day of saving lives. No one could have anticipated what would happen next. When Dr. Gilbert entered the examination room, he was met not with a patient seeking help, but with a man who had spent over 20 years plotting his death. Elkis drew a handgun and fired multiple shots. The room erupted in chaos. Staff screamed, patients ducked for cover, and Dr. Gilbert collapsed instantly. The office, usually a place of comfort and healing, became a scene of terror. Even as the chaos unfolded, Elkis remained calm and controlled, surrendering without resistance when police arrived minutes later. The murder weapon remained in his hands, a silent testament to decades of obsession turned lethal. The investigation revealed the horrifying depth of Elkis's fixation. He had purchased the firearm in advance, practiced shooting, and carefully plotted the day he would confront Dr. Gilbert. This was not a crime of passion, but a premeditated act of revenge spanning more than 20 years. At trial, the defense argued that Elkis suffered from dementia and depression. The prosecution, however, painted a picture of a cold, calculating man driven by obsession, not madness. Within 40 minutes of deliberation, the jury found him guilty of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of lying in wait. In September 2017, Stanwood Fred Elkis, then 79, was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Dr. Gilbert's death left a void in the lives of family, friends, colleagues, and patients. His family spoke at the sentencing, highlighting the profound irony. A man who dedicated his life to healing others was killed by someone he had once sought to help. He is remembered for his brilliance, kindness, and humanity, and as a stark reminder that even lives marked by purpose and achievement can be vulnerable to the darkest human obsessions. Dr. Ronald Franklin Gilbert's story is a cautionary tale. A life defined by promise, dedication, and compassion, ended by a grudge nurtured over decades, and a legacy that continues to resonate with those who knew him. Woodland Hills, California. A sunlit enclave of tree-lined streets, upscale shops, and quiet suburban life. It was here that Dr. Hamid Mirshojae had built more than just a career. He had built a sanctuary. Specializing in addiction medicine, he dedicated his days to helping people reclaim their lives from the grips of substance abuse. His clinic was more than an office. It was a place of healing, trust, and second chances. Colleagues describe him as compassionate, patient, and deeply attentive to his patients' struggles. Families often relied on him not just for medical guidance, but for moral support. Despite the emotional weight of his profession, Dr. Mirshojae carried himself with grace and humility, bringing light to a field often shadowed by despair. In his personal life, he had recently remarried and welcomed a new child. Friends and family said he had never seemed happier, like a man turning the page to a new chapter filled with hope and stability. But as idyllic as his life seemed, the past he thought he had left behind would not remain hidden. August 23rd, 2024. An ordinary evening in Woodland Hills, the kind where the sun dips behind the hills and the city exhales a calm. Dr. Mirshojae, as usual, stayed late at his clinic, tying up appointments and reviewing patient files. The parking lot, normally bustling with patients, was empty, save for him. Unbeknownst to him, a predator was waiting. Surveillance footage later revealed the figure arriving long before Dr. Mirshojae left, lingering, silent, patient. For nearly an hour, the person watched, studied, and waited for the exact moment to strike. This was not random violence. There was no impulsive rage, no accidental confrontation. It was a meticulously planned ambush. As Dr. Mirshojae walked toward his car, the killer moved with precision. Shots rang out, tearing through the quiet evening. Multiple rounds struck him from behind. In minutes, the life of a man dedicated to saving others was extinguished in the stillness of the parking lot he thought was safe. The assailant vanished, leaving chaos, shock, and grief in their wake. Police faced a question that gnawed at their instincts. Who would want to kill a man known for healing lives? Initial theories range from disgruntled patients to random robbery, but the careful nature of the attack suggested something darker. Investigators began digging into Dr. Mirshojae's personal history and discovered a turbulent past. A bitter, long-running divorce with his ex-wife, Hoag Memorial, had left a trail of animosity over child custody and finances. More disturbingly, Dr. Mirshojae had survived a prior violent attack months earlier, assaulted with baseball bats in what had seemed like a random act of violence. The pieces began to fit together. Law enforcement theorized that the baseball bat attack was a dry run, a rehearsal for a murder that would eventually succeed. Phone records, financial transactions, and witness statements painted a chilling picture. Hoag Memorial allegedly orchestrated a revenge plot, hiring someone to carry out the killing. The suspected triggerman was later apprehended in Texas, more than 1,000 miles from the scene, highlighting the scale and cold calculation behind the crime. The news sent shockwaves through Woodland Hills. Patients, colleagues, and neighbors struggled to reconcile the tragedy with the man they had admired. Candles flickered in front of the clinic. Flowers were left in quiet tribute. Social media became a repository of grief and memory, with stories of Dr. Mirshojae's kindness and dedication circulating endlessly. For those who had been under his care, the loss was deeply personal. Many spoke of how he had gone above and beyond, checking on patients, mentoring young doctors, and providing guidance during life's most vulnerable moments. To them, he was more than a doctor. He was a lifeline, a source of stability, and a beacon of hope. The community had lost a figure of integrity and compassion, and the brutal circumstances of his death left a lingering sense of unease. The idyllic suburban life of Woodland Hills had been pierced by a violent reminder. Evil often hides in the most unexpected places. Though his life was cut tragically short, Dr. Mirshojae's legacy endures. Memorials, scholarships, and foundations have been established in his name to support young medical professionals and emphasize ethics, empathy, and patient care. Stories of his compassion circulate, inspiring others to emulate his dedication. His death serves as a stark warning. Vengeance and bitterness, left unchecked, can escalate into unspeakable acts. While the legal system pursues justice, the ripple effects of his murder resonate far beyond Woodland Hills, reminding us that even those devoted to healing are not immune to the consequences of malice. Dr. Hamid Mirshojae's life was a testament to hope, resilience, and service. His death, though devastating, underscores a grim reality. The past never fully disappears, and forgiveness, or the lack thereof, can determine the course of destiny in tragic and irrevocable ways. Laguna Woods, California, is a serene enclave, a community where streets wind between sun-dappled homes and quiet parks, and neighbors greet each other by name. On May 15, 2022, the Geneva Presbyterian Church hosted a special luncheon filled with the laughter of friends and the warmth of family. The event was a celebration of life, unity, and shared faith, honoring a pastor visiting from Taiwan. Tables were adorned with plates of homemade dishes, delicate flower arrangements, and the soft hum of piano music in the background. Among the attendees was Dr. John Cheng, a sports medicine physician and martial arts instructor. Though he did not regularly attend this church, he came to support his mother, who had a strong connection to the congregation. Dr. Cheng's presence was quietly grounding. He smiled at neighbors, shared light conversation, and helped carry trays of food. Those around him sensed a calm strength, the quiet confidence of a man who had dedicated his life to healing others. He glanced at his mother, noting the joy in her eyes. She had been proud of her son's achievements, his successful medical career, his dedication to martial arts, and the respect he had earned in his community. It was a day that seemed ordinary in its simplicity, but ordinary days can turn extraordinary in an instant. For Dr. Cheng, this day would forever change the course of his life and the lives of everyone around him. At first, there was only calm. Laughter mingled with conversation, plates clinked, and the sunlight streamed through the church's stained glass windows. Then, David Chow, a 68-year-old man armed with 2 handguns and a large capacity magazine, entered the room. His movements were quiet, deliberate, almost rehearsed. Without warning, he fired into the ceiling. The sound shattered the atmosphere. Some attendees froze, thinking a decoration had fallen. Others flinched instinctively. Panic spread like wildfire. Elderly congregants, many in their 80s and 90s, dove under tables. Some stumbled, others screamed. Chairs were overturned, meals scattered, and the once joyful space was now a scene of terror. The gunman had chained the doors from the inside, creating a prison out of a sanctuary. Fear gripped every heart in the room. Amid the chaos, Dr. Cheng's mind raced, assessing the threat in the split second before instinct took over. He saw the terror in the eyes of his mother and the older congregants. He recognized the imminent danger. Hesitation would mean death for many. Without a second thought, he made a choice that would define his legacy. In a room dominated by fear, Dr. Cheng did the unthinkable. He charged the gunman, tackling him to the floor with precision honed from years of martial arts training. The impact stunned Chow, if only for a moment, and that moment became a lifeline for dozens of parishioners. Shots rang out. Dr. Cheng was struck multiple times. The pain was instant and overwhelming, yet he continued to wrestle with the assailant, holding him down as others scrambled to react. His actions created a window of opportunity, a brief pause in the gunman's lethal intent. The pastor, seizing the moment, grabbed a chair and struck Cho, joining other congregants who lunged forward to disarm the shooter. Extension cords were used to bind Cho's legs until police arrived. Dr. Chung's sacrifice had bought enough time for the survivors to neutralize the threat, but it came at the ultimate cost. He would not leave the room alive. The authorities quickly identified the assailant as David Cho, a man motivated by anti-Taiwanese sentiment and political grievances. Investigators uncovered chilling details about his planning. Cho had targeted the church intentionally, chosen the date carefully, and brought weapons capable of mass destruction. His actions were deliberate, premeditated, and rooted in hate. Cho was taken into custody and charged with murder and attempted murder. His motives classified as a hate crime. His arrest brought some measure of justice to a community shattered by violence, though it could never undo the loss of a beloved healer. Legal proceedings would later ensure that Cho faced the full weight of accountability for his deadly actions. Dr. John Cheng's story is not just one of tragedy, but of extraordinary courage and selflessness. In the split second between life and death, he chose to protect others, to confront evil with nothing but his body and his determination. His actions prevented what could have been a massacre, saving dozens of lives. His wife, children, mother, and community mourned him deeply, yet celebrated his bravery. His colleagues, students, and neighbors remember him not just as a doctor or martial arts instructor, but as a man who embodied the very essence of heroism, selfless action in the face of fear. Law enforcement officials publicly praised him, acknowledging that the outcome of the attack could have been far worse without his intervention. Dr. Cheng's sacrifice is a permanent reminder that heroism is revealed, not constructed, and that sometimes one person's courage can change the course of many lives. His legacy continues to inspire. In medical offices, martial arts studios, and community gatherings, people tell the story of a doctor who became a hero not by chance, but by choice. Dr. Chung may have fallen that day, but the lives he saved, the bravery he exemplified, and the hope he ignited will endure forever. California has been home to some of the nation's most dedicated physicians, men and women who have devoted their lives to healing others, often at great personal sacrifice. Yet, as the stories of Dr. Hamid Mirshojae, Dr. John Cheng, and Dr. Ronald Gilbert reveal, even those whose calling is to save lives are not immune to the darkest corners of human malice. Dr. Hamid Mirshojae, taken in a brutal ambush outside his clinic, reminds us that ambition and dedication can make one a target in ways that defy logic or fairness. Dr. John Cheng, a hero in the face of terror, shows that courage often comes unbidden, and that one life, offered selflessly, can protect many others. And Dr. Ronald Gilbert's tragic death at the hands of a patient who harbored a grudge for decades serves as a chilling lesson about the unforeseen consequences of human obsession and resentment. These cases are more than headlines. They are cautionary tales. They remind us that those we rely upon to heal are human, vulnerable, and sometimes caught in circumstances they cannot control. They show the profound courage it takes to confront danger and the fragile line between life and death in the modern world. As we remember these physicians, let us honor their legacy not only by mourning their loss, but by reflecting on the value of vigilance, empathy, and courage in our own lives. Let us acknowledge the risks faced by those who care for us, and let their stories inspire us to protect, support, and cherish the healers among us. If these stories moved you, take a moment to reflect on the heroes in your own life, those who dedicate themselves to helping others, often at great personal risk. Share this video to honor their courage and raise awareness about the dangers that can lurk behind everyday life. Consider supporting local initiatives that protect healthcare workers and first responders, and always value the people who devote themselves to saving lives. And most importantly, never take kindness and courage for granted, because the world may not always be safe, But remembering and honoring those who make it better is a responsibility we all share. Doctors dedicate their lives to saving others. They enter the lives of patients, families, and communities, carrying knowledge, trust, and hope. But what happens when the very hands that heal are met with violence? California, sun-soaked, thriving, and safe to many, is home to countless stories of tragedy behind closed doors. This is the story of 3 doctors whose lives ended far too soon, victims of malice, obsession, and senseless violence.